Hello, Thrivers, and welcome back to Your Mental Health Mentor YouTube channel. My name is Katie, and I am your mental health mentor. So this is now the fourth video in the Mental Health Foundations playlist, and I am so excited to be bringing this specific episode to you. In the last three videos, we've been becoming aware of our inner world, and we've been practicing getting curious about why we react certain ways, think the way that we do, and even why do I know exactly what I need to do, but I still don't do it. So if you haven't already, make sure you've watched the three videos before this one to make sure that you understand the Katie terminology that goes on in these videos. All right, I don't know if you're ready for this topic, but this simple distinction can completely shift your perspective on your mental health. Today, we're talking about the brain and the mind. Learning about aspects of both our brain and our mind allows us to understand ourselves and our mental health on a way deeper level. All right, a moment of honesty. I used to use these two words interchangeably, the brain and the mind. I never knew the difference, but they're not actually the same thing, but they're not completely separate either. Let me explain. Think about a laptop. There's hardware and there's software. The hardware is the physical pieces that come together to make the base of the laptop, but it wouldn't be a laptop without the software. The software is what's programmed into it to make it work properly. Is the hardware and the software the same thing? No, but together they make the laptop. Kind of like how the brain and the mind come together to make you the functioning, beautiful soul that you are. The brain is kind of like the physical hardware, and the mind you can't really see, kind of like the software. They're a part of the same system, but have different functions. All right, get this. We're going a little bit deeper into this analogy. If the physical hardware is damaged, then it can impact the software. For those of you who are just meeting me now on this video, I have a brain injury. I've had multiple concussions, and it's led to now post-concussion syndrome. So getting concussions with my brain injury has made me see a lot of different sides of brain health and mind health. And when it comes to the hardware in a laptop and the physical brain getting damaged, it can impact both the software and the functionality of the mind. If the hardware on a laptop is damaged, then it can actually impact how the software functions. You can get glitches, things don't save properly, things don't load properly. And in my opinion, I see this super similar to a physical brain injury. When there's a physical injury on the brain, then it actually can impact the mind as well. People develop depression or anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, memory loss, and brain fog. Coming from someone who has a brain injury, I often need a little more time to process information, kind of like a slower laptop. But this part's interesting. If something happens to the software, it doesn't necessarily impact the hardware. And sometimes same goes for your brain and your mind. If you struggle with mental health challenges, it doesn't necessarily change your physical brain. Now, this is not a literal example, it's just an analogy that gives you a good enough idea. But just so we're super clear, I'm going to break it down between the brain and the mind and let you know the differences and how each other works. We're going to start with the brain. Now, if you know me, you know that I am a very curious soul. So when I started experiencing challenges with my physical brain, I seeked out the education to become more knowledgeable on the subject. Once I had a few concussions and then it started lasting even longer into post-concussion syndrome, I knew I had to figure out what was going on in the physical brain to last 7 years with concussion symptoms. Here's what I've learned. The brain is a physical organ that we can study biologically. It has billions of neurons, it's constantly changing, and it's incredibly adaptive. So because the brain is a part of our physical body, things like sleep, nutrition, hydration, movement, stress, illness, and injury can all influence how the brain functions. That is why I'm such a big advocate for taking care of your physical health, because it massively impacts your mental health. Your mental health is not separate from your physical health. I'm going to briefly introduce you to the term neuroplasticity. If you haven't heard this before, it essentially just means that your brain is actually able to rewire itself by forming new neural connections. We're going to be talking a little bit more about this in the next video. But until then, we're moving on to the mind. I started to learn more about the mind when I started getting into my mental health journey with depression. I started looking at healing and a lot of different other things, but what was most important was learning how the mind worked. Now, the mind is a bit of a broader concept. It includes that inner world that I was talking about in the last videos. It has to do with your thoughts, perspective, beliefs, memories, and so much more. Get ready for some more Katie terms. In my opinion, the mind is what creates that inner world and really brings it to life through our experiences. Our minds influence our identity, dreams, perspective, beliefs, imagination, our fears, and our values. It's kind of funny because no one can see your mind, but your mind shapes how you experience your entire life. Your mind is what's interpreting your inner world, which means two people can go through the same experience, but experience it completely different. Now, as much as I've made the brain and the mind sound separate, they're actually not. But I like to think of them as besties. They're always working together. Your physical brain impacts your mind's experiences. And if you remember before in the last videos, we talked a little bit about how repeated experiences and behaviors create patterns. And it can do that through neuroplasticity in the brain, which is actually a physical change in your brain. So neither the brain or the mind work alone. That's why improving your mental health is not just about changing one thing, like counseling for your mind or medication for your brain. You have to be able to understand the whole system together. So as you can see now, the mind and the brain are not interchangeable, but they are deeply interconnected. So you truly can change the way that you see yourself. It's all about perspective. So combining this information with the concept of getting curious, we can go from I'm lazy to am I physically feeling tired or am I mentally overwhelmed? The goal here is not to fix yourself. It's simply to understand yourself deeply, to better serve your needs so that you can thrive in life. You are no different than me. You have a brain that can adapt and change, a mind that can interpret this experience and information, the ability to build new habits and be influenced by new beliefs, and a physical body that you can care for to best support your mental health. A lot of suffering in the mental health space comes from believing that there is only one way to interpret an experience, but that is not true, and it doesn't have to be your truth. Your brain, like an iPhone, is constantly updating, so your beliefs, your thought patterns, and your inner world don't have to stay the same forever. If I can seek it out, find change, and create change and see it in my life, then so can you. So make sure that you're subscribed so you can keep building upon this skill set within the Your Mental Health Mentor community. All right, we can't end this without a little growth work for the week. Each week, I'm giving you little activities that you can simply carry through the week with you so that you can build this skill set and put it into action in your life. And if you've watched any of these videos before, you know that there are 3 types of people out there, and the first type of person is gonna see this, listen to the growth work, and do none of the questions, none of the activity throughout the work, and probably get no growth from this. And then there's the second type of person who's gonna watch it, give it a try, do a little bit, but kind of half-effort it. And they might see some growth, but not to the max. Which brings me to the third type of person, like me. You know you need and desire this growth in your life, and you're willing to put in the work in the week between these videos to actually see that growth come through. So throughout this week, we're gonna be identifying our experiences and determining whether they're coming from our mind, our brain, or even both. And then we'll seek deeper understanding and potential solutions. We're gonna do this in 3 easy steps. Step number 1. We're gonna use our self-awareness skills from video number 2 in the Mental Health Foundations playlist to notice what comes up for you throughout the week. And then you're just gonna write it down in a notebook or on the notes on your phone. Simple step number 2. We're gonna determine whether what you're noticing is coming from your mind or your brain, or both. So next to where you wrote down what you're noticing, you're just gonna add a little label as brain, mind, or both. And then there's simple step number 3. Now, I made this one as bonus, but I know that my third type of person, like myself, is gonna wanna do this part as well for the next level growth. So bonus step number 3 is to seek understanding. So when something comes up, you've journaled it and you've labeled it, take a moment to think about it for a minute. Journal on what you've discovered and why you think it's coming from your mind or your brain, or both. And if it makes sense, seek out solutions to what you may be experiencing if it's needed. I literally used this practice today, so I'm going to share this experience as an example for you. Earlier today, I sat down to write out my notes for making this video. And oh my goodness, my mind was so distracted. It was all over the place. I was having a really hard time sitting down and focusing on the task at hand. Now, because I knew this information, I actually stopped to ask myself, why? Why am I feeling this way? And where is it coming from? I stopped to think about all of the factors. And then I realized it was coming from my physical brain. How did I know that? Because I had not properly nourished myself throughout the day. So I decided to take a break, make a healthy meal, eat it, and come back. And I got it done pretty quickly. Now, I just want to give you the perspective shift in if I hadn't known this information beforehand, if I hadn't paused to think about how I was feeling and asked myself those curiosity questions, I easily could have just jumped to a conclusion and believed it by thinking, I don't want to do this, which isn't true. I'm so excited every time I sit down to bring you guys this information because I know it's impacting lives on the other side. So if I didn't have the knowledge on how my brain health is my mind's bestie, it would have been so easy to believe that thought or push myself too hard and not get the best information out to you. Or I could have gotten stuck in the mind space of judging my own abilities to accomplish my tasks. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what this activity will look like throughout the week. Get as detailed as you can, take as much time to think about it as you can, but also don't stress it because this is just the practice of being able to notice, get curious, and then find solutions that best serve you in that moment. But that is all I have for you today. It is short and sweet. So hit that like button if you enjoyed what you heard today, and make sure you're subscribed for next Mental Health Mondays video. I'm so grateful that you're choosing to grow with me, and I cannot wait to talk about change next week. I'm Katie, your mental health mentor, and I'll see you there. Bye.